T-minus 10, 9, 8. We have a go for main engine start. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The space race competition to land humans on the moon, the goal set by President Kennedy in '61, seemed to be heating up considerably.
One of the major research contributions of TWU involves work with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, in which we aid in conserving bone mineral of the astronauts.
Dr. Pauline Beery Mack of Texas Woman's University engaged in research for NASA.
When we talk about a typical day for Dr. Mack, it might be 24 hours. She was a workaholic.
She had a very strong personality. She took over a room. She just was good at conversation, good at interacting people, but she knew her science and she knew how to explain it to people. It is interesting that she came to Texas Woman's University, but I think John Gwynn really wanted a woman in a major role to set that tone for a woman's university. She was a chemistry major to begin with, and she was recognized as a chemist. She won significant medal, the Garvan Medal, and she used that chemistry knowledge to go into bone density. And we had NASA projects from 1962 to about the end of the 60s. NASA wanted to study what weightlessness would do to the people who went into space.
So we know that when you go into space, the rate at which you lose bone is 10 times the amount that's observed in postmenopausal women on Earth. So that is significant. What we know, how you can simulate microgravity type of conditions, is bed rest studies, right?
They stayed in a recumbent position and were fed in a recumbent position. So this was 6 weeks of lying down.
The diet was just food that the nutrition department had developed that they think it would supply the body with calcium and phosphorus.
We had little cubes of food, and we determined that they all tasted pretty much the same. It's the way they were named. If it was a cheesecake cube, it really didn't taste very good because it tasted just like the toast cube. She used a system in which they x-rayed the heel bone, the oscalcis, with a wedge of aluminum that you knew the density of. We eventually learned bed rest was pretty bad for people, that they lost even more bone density than they would in weightlessness. We learned so much that extended beyond space about the health of people and about the importance of activity from those bed rest studies. Radio and TV and newspapers came. Lady Bird Johnson came.
Dr. Mack was one of these pioneering ladies that determined how to measure, not only measure bone mass, but to characterize it in astronauts before and after their space flights, especially in the early days of space flight in the 1960s.
Part of our challenge today for space travel is we can't go to Mars until we solve this problem of mobilizing bone during space travel.
She went to whatever site she could go when astronauts landed, and she x-rayed them at whatever site that they launched from also.
Those men were going to be in a weightless situation, no stress on their bones, and what we found was that they were losing a lot of calcium, more than they should have been. Bill Stover was our x-ray technician, and he and Dr. Mack did a lot of traveling together.
And we had a space flight that involved collecting data from the astronauts She had to send Bill to do it because they didn't allow women on board ship. I'm sure that was frustrating to her because she didn't see any difference between men and women, and she certainly employed lots of men around her.
I believe what she did set up many of the studies that are happening today, and a lot of the countermeasures that NASA has undergone with their astronauts to try to prevent bone loss in space, including nutrient supplementation and exercise.
It's not just engineering things that are important, but the human aspects of space are an important thing also. There were few women in her generation who set such a role for other women without intentionally doing it. It was the process of doing her job and doing it well, and the creativeness to reach into areas that most women didn't think about going into space.
The fact that she was born before 1900 and was able to make her way to 3 different institutions teaching science courses. Trailblazer, yes. Pioneer, yes. And we get to continue on her trajectory.
She understood that there's a strong connection between what we eat, what we do, and our longevity. And she was able to pinpoint some of the things that we today, I think, take for granted, that we are what we eat, we are what we do.
Those bone density studies, we didn't really recognize how important that was for several years. So it wasn't high profile and she wasn't getting a lot of atta girls, but she kept on going.
Dr. Mack taught me that you just didn't accept no the first time. You just kept working until you got it done.